there is something seriously wrong going on when it comes to sports. The integrity is more questionable now than it has ever been before. Late last month, as we all know, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, all arrested for illegal gambling. In Damon Jones' case, in Chauncey Billups' case, in Terry Rozier's case, we're talking about fixing.
Alright, so here's the deal. This is happening at 3 separate schools. What's wild is that this isn't some isolated incident. This is a full-blown crisis, and it's spreading through college basketball faster than anyone expected. And trust me, what you're hearing is just the tip of the iceberg. Everyone's focused on the 6 players who got banned. But what about the rest? The ones who haven't been caught yet? These schemes are so blatant. Are these guys just clueless, or is there a whole network of smarter players slipping under the radar? I'm gonna break it all down for you, and after this, you're never gonna watch a close game the same way again.
Has an issue on their hand. You had the Michael Porter Jr., the Jonte Porter case. You had the Michael Beasley case that's still up in the air. Most recently, Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones. Basketball is in a place. Is something going to come down the pike when it comes to the WNBA? When it comes to WNBA leadership? WNBA officials, perhaps. WNBA players, perhaps. Going 2 for 15 on a random Wednesday night.
Did you catch what he said about the WNBA? Most people are glossing over this, but it's massive. He's pointing out an entire league where no one is even paying attention. Think about that for a second. If players and investigators aren't watching the WNBA, what's stopping the same schemes from happening there? Normally, someone goes 4 for 15 on a random Wednesday and everyone just shrugs it off as a bad night. After hearing this, you'll never see a bad game the same way again. And here's the kicker. The biggest name involved? BJ Freeman from Arizona State. Not some bench warmer trying to make a quick buck. This was the team's second leading scorer, averaging nearly 14 points per game. A legitimate player, literally throwing it all away, but what he was actually doing, well, that's something you need to hear.
Never play college basketball again, nor will the former players at Mississippi Valley State and New Orleans. Sedquavius Hunter, Daquavian Short, Jamon Vincent, Donovan Sanders, and Alvin Stredrick. Freeman's case was first reported by CBS Sports in September. The NCAA uncovered his infractions while looking into a different case tied to former Fresno State basketball player Mikal Robinson. Records on Robinson's phone indicated that on 4 separate occasions between November and December 2024, Freeman knowingly provided information to Robinson, who was betting on Freeman through daily fantasy sports accounts. According to the Committee on the Infractions Report, Freeman also knowingly provided information on at least 2 occasions to his then-girlfriend, who was also betting.
So here's what Freeman was doing. He was feeding inside info to his girlfriend and a guy named Male Robinson. He'd tell them exactly what to bet on. Bet the over on my points. Bet the over on my 3-pointers. And then he'd try to hit those numbers during the games. But here's where it gets insane. When investigators confronted him, he lied about everything, claimed he hadn't shared any info, denied having a DraftKings account, even though the account was in his name, linked to his email, and he'd been depositing money while still at Arizona State. You're literally watching someone destroy their future in real time. And for what? This wasn't millions. It was just a college kid chasing a few $1,000s, maybe less. And it gets crazier. Freeman was kicked off Arizona State in February, but not because of the gambling. He planned to transfer to UCF in the spring, probably thinking he'd escaped it all. Then out of nowhere, permanent ban, no more college basketball. His career was done before it even began. But here's the thing, Freeman's scheme? That's small potatoes compared to the madness that went down at the University of New Orleans. Take a look at this.
For the NCAA's finding, a student athlete reported overhearing Sedquavius Hunter and Daquavian Short and Jamon Vincent discussing a third party placing a bet for them on their December 28, 2024 game. The same student athlete reported that during a timeout near the end of the game, Short instructed him not to score any more points. Hey, play some bets. Don't score any more points so my bets can hit. Don't score any more points so the people who I told to bet on this can hit. The 3 players were suspended at the end of January last season and never played.
Hold on, did you catch that? During a timeout at the end of a live game, one player actually tells his teammate, "Don't score any more points so my bets hit." Think about that for a second. They were coordinating a game fix right there on the bench in front of coaches and cameras. The audacity is unreal, and it gets even crazier. Another student athlete reported overhearing 3 players, Ken Quabius Hunter, Dovian Short, and Juman Vincent, talking about a third party placing bets for them before their December 28th game. They weren't even subtle. They were openly discussing throwing a game where teammates could hear everything. It gets worse. Text messages from Vincent's phone showed him literally telling people to bet on the game because we plan to throw it. Who even texts that? Who leaves that kind of evidence on their own phone? And here's the part nobody's talking about. These weren't one-off games. The investigation found they tried to manipulate 7 games in total. 7 matches where fans bought tickets, placed bets, and the outcome had already been decided before the tip-off.
Calls on the same day with a known bettor who told them to lay it down for the next game. This is as blatant as you can get when it comes to fixing games, rigging outcomes, jonesing the system, if you will. At MVSU, Mississippi Valley State, the NCAA claims it found more of the same, albeit in another scheme that was unconnected to the activity at University of New Orleans. The NCAA's probe began with the team's 79-67 loss at Alabama A&M on January 6th, but as the investigation continued in 2025, they uncovered game fixing dating back to the week of Christmas last.
Now we've got text messages showing Short and Hunter talking about getting $5,000, $5,000 to throw a game. On top of that, they're on FaceTime calls with a known bettor, getting instructions on what to wager for the next matchup. This isn't just college kids making bad choices. This is organized crime playing out in college basketball. We're talking systematic game fixing, with outside bettors calling the shots. And it gets even darker. There's a third school involved, and this is where things get really twisted. Mississippi Valley State had its own scheme, and what investigators uncovered there shows just how deep this goes. The NCAA's probe started with a single game, a January loss to Alabama A&M, but once they started digging, they uncovered game fixing all the way back to Christmas week. The way it all went down, it's like something straight out of a crime movie.
24 game, he overheard Donovan Sanders on the phone with an unknown third party talking about throwing the game, the NCAA states. Sanders asked the student athlete to participate in the call because the third party had told Sanders the individual intended to bet on the game and wanted to know that another of Sanders' teammates would participate in the scheme. The student athlete denied altering his performance or receiving money from Sanders or any other individuals. Sanders texted the same student athlete after the game and told him to delete their messages.
Picture this. Right before their December 20th of 21 game, one of the student athletes overhears Donovan Sanders on the phone. Sanders is talking about throwing the game. Then he asks the teammate to join the call because the bettor wants to make sure another player is in on it too. Think about that. He's trying to drag his own teammate into game fixing just minutes before tip-off. When the teammate refuses, Sanders texts him after the game, telling him to delete all the messages. That alone proves he knew exactly what he was doing, and that it was wrong. He wasn't thinking about investigators uncovering it. He just assumed erasing the text would cover his tracks. But it gets even more shocking. Sanders and another player, Alvin Strand, were paid to ensure Mississippi Valley State lost their January 6th game against Alabama A&M. They were being bribed to throw a game for their own team. Now, you might be thinking, at least the NCAA is cracking down on this, right? Just hold on, because the way the NCAA is handling all of this, the hypocrisy will blow your mind.
Is that the NCAA, the hypocrites that they are, as of November 1st, they now allow these athletes to bet on pro sports. So let's just get this habit going, shall we? The hypocrisy is all across the board, from the people that report on this, the ESPN, they have their ESPN bet, the podcast, they have like their by FanDuel, by DraftKings, so on and so forth. Now you have the NCAA punishing players for betting on games, fixing games. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But on the other hand, you're now allowing these guys to bet on pro sports, getting them in the habit, getting them in the mode of betting on this crap before they weren't allowed to.
Did you catch that? And the NCAA is permanently banning these players for gambling and fixing games, which yes, they absolutely should. But here's the kicker, as of November 1st, the NCAA is now allowing college leagues to bet on professional sports. Let me repeat that. The same organization that just ended 6 players' careers for gambling is now encouraging athletes to gamble, just not on their own games. It's like telling someone, go ahead, drink, but only on certain days. Completely insane. They're normalizing gambling, teaching players how to use betting apps, explaining odds, showing them how to place wagers, and then acting shocked when some cross the line and bet on their own sport. It gets even bigger. ESPN covers these gambling scandals with the ESPN Bet logo plastered everywhere. Podcasts are sponsored by DraftKings and FanDuel. Yeah. The entire sports media ecosystem is fueled by gambling money, yet they act outraged when athletes follow the exact behavior they're being encouraged to adopt. The system is literally pushing players toward gambling, then punishing them when they go too far. It's wrong, and no one says it because there's too much money at stake. But zoom out for a second. What's happening in college basketball is only the tip of the iceberg. Remember what he mentioned at the start about the NBA and MLB? That's where this story really goes next.
Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, all arrested for illegal gambling. In Damon Jones' case, in Chauncey Billups' case, in Terry Rozier's case. We're talking about fixing games. We're talking about rigging prop bets for benefits of others. Illegal behavior. In MLB, in Major League Baseball, we have Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz getting indicted on charges of rigging pitches, throwing balls purposely, taking heat off pitches to hit certain prop bets. And over the weekend,
so here's what's happening. Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones all got arrested for illegal gambling. For Billups and Rozier, this wasn't just betting. They were fixing games, manipulating prop bets to benefit others. These are NBA players making millions, and yet they're still getting caught in these gambling schemes. And it's not just basketball. Over in MLB, Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz were charged with rigging pitches, throwing balls intentionally, taking speed off pitches, all to influence specific prop bets. Even professional athletes at the highest level are undermining their own sport for gambling cash. This should worry every fan. And remember, these are just the ones who got caught. The sloppy, obvious, or unlucky ones under investigation. How many others are out there running smarter schemes? Manipulating games without leaving a trace, without texting teammates. Look at cases like Michael Porter Jr. or the John Tate Porter situation that exploded in the news. Every time it happens, the league acts shocked. Prop betting has created a system where players can directly profit from underperforming. Bet on yourself to score below a certain number of points. Have an off night, and who's going to know? The system practically invites it.
And you have to ask yourself, this guy shoots 85% from the free throw line. Why is he shooting so bad today? This guy finishes around the rim at a 60% clip. Why can't he hit a layup today? And then when you double that onto the women's basketball side, you just told me that this player was one of the best in the league. Well, why does she look incapable of making layups? Why does she look incapable of dribbling the ball? This player never fouls out of game. Why is she fouling out today? There's no difference in the defense she's playing today than she usually plays.
And that's the question every fan should be asking when a player who normally shoots 85% from the free throw line suddenly goes 3 for 10. What's really going on? When someone who makes 60% of their shots at the rim can't sink a layup, is it just a bad night or is something more sinister happening? That's the terrifying part about gambling corruption. It makes you doubt every unusual stat or performance. The player who fouls out in the first half when they almost never foul. Maybe they had money riding on foul prop bets. A star suddenly launching way more threes than usual. Maybe they were chasing the over on three-point attempts. And think about the WNBA, where scrutiny is lower and investigative resources are limited. It could be even worse there. That 4 for 15 night on a random Wednesday. Fans chalk it up to a slump or a tough matchup. But after everything we've seen, you have to wonder, how many of those bad games were actually planned? The truth is, we may never know. For every player careless enough to text, "Let's throw this game," there's another who's clever enough to just play poorly. No texts, no calls, no evidence. Just a perfectly timed bad night that happens to hit someone's prop bet exactly right.
were aware of the unconnected schemes. Quote, while the cases at each school are not directly related, the violations for each case involved betting-related game manipulation and/or student athletes provided information to known bettors, according to the NCAA's release. Additionally, all three cases involved lack of cooperation by student athletes who knowingly provided false or misleading information to investigators. As a result of the sports betting violations, the student athletes all violated ethical conduct rules, triggering permanent.
The NCAA decided not to punish the schools because most coaches and players either weren't involved or had no idea these schemes were happening. The incidents at each school weren't connected. Arizona State, University of New Orleans, and Mississippi Valley State. They were three completely separate situations. But think about what that actually means. Game fixing happening simultaneously at three different schools, completely independently. This wasn't some massive organized crime ring coordinating things. It was separate groups of players, each figuring out the same scam on their own. That's actually scarier than a single coordinated plan. It shows just how obvious the opportunity is. Players at completely different schools, all stumbling onto the same scheme without even knowing about each other. And in every case, the players lied to investigators, deleted messages, covered their tracks. These weren't accidents. They were deliberate, criminal acts with built-in cover-ups. The NCAA is banning all 6 players permanently. Their college careers are done. And forget about the pros. No professional team wants someone banned for game fixing. But here's the bigger question. Is this really enough? These players didn't just break NCAA rules, they committed fraud. They took money to deceive fans, bettors, and even their own teammates. So where are the criminal charges? Where's the FBI looking into sports corruption? The system punished them, but the crime goes far beyond college basketball rules.
Infractions announcement tied to college basketball in the past 2 months. The second infraction tied to college basketball in the last 2 months. For its part, the NCAA and its president Charlie Baker have lobbied to eliminate player prop bets on gambling apps and at casinos. Prop bets can lead to illegal activity, like the cases depicted above, and can trigger frequent online harassment from gamblers toward college athletes. Now, what makes this all a little funny is that the NCAA, the hypocrites that they are, as of November 1st, they now allow these athletes to bet on pro sports. So let's just get this habit going, shall we?
This is already the second major college basketball scandal in just the past 2 months. That's an average of 1 huge gambling controversy per month, and those are only the ones getting caught and reported. The NCAA, led by President Charlie Baker, has been pushing to eliminate player prop bets from gambling apps and casinos. And honestly, they're right. Prop bets create a direct incentive for players to manipulate their own performance. Bet on yourself to score under 10 points? Just have an off night and collect the money. For some players, the temptation is too strong to resist. The problem, prop bets are a goldmine for the gambling industry. Fans love them. They're simple to understand. They make watching the games more thrilling, and they keep people betting. Sportsbooks aren't going to give that up without a fight. So here's the clash. The NCAA is trying to protect the integrity of the sport, while gambling companies are fighting to keep the bets that fuel the corruption. And guess who has more money and political influence? Not the NCAA. Prop bets also come with a darker side. Online harassment. College athletes are being bombarded with death threats and abuse on social media just because they didn't hit some random over on a bet. We've built a system where adults are harassing teenagers over gambling losses. The entire structure is broken, and everyone with the power to fix it is too invested in the money to care.
On the infractions report, Freeman also knowingly provided information on at least 2 occasions to his then girlfriend, who was also betting on Freeman. When interviewed by enforcement staff, Freeman knowingly provided false or misleading information when he denied sharing information with Robinson and his then girlfriend. He also denied having a daily fantasy sports account, which was under his name and email address, into which he had made deposits while competing at a previous school. Freeman attempted to hit the overs on his point totals, turnovers, assists, and 3-pointers made, per the NCAA's finding. He was kicked off the team last February, though a source told CBS the reason for removing him from ASU's program was not tied to his game.
Freeman was trying to hit the over on multiple stats: points, turnovers, assists, and three-pointers, all in the same games. According to the NCAA, Tyrese, he did this in at least 4 separate contests between November and December. Arizona State fans have every right to be outraged. Freeman was eventually removed from the team in February, but a CBS Sports source revealed it wasn't because of the gambling. At that point, the school had no idea what he had been doing. They kicked him off for an entirely unrelated reason. Then Freeman announced plans to transfer to UCF in the spring, probably assuming he was in the clear, that whatever led to his removal at ASU was behind him.